there are many things in this film where like you are literally inside the main character's head purely through sound design. Drive-By Movies, my name's Blaze.
And I'm James.
And never have I ever seen Come and See.
Come and See is from 1985. It's about a young boy that joins the Soviet resistance movement against ruthless German forces, and he experiences the horrors of World War II. So this is also a movie I'm not too familiar with, and when you brought it up, I was very surprised, but you did a little bit of research on it, and I was actually like really stoked to check it out, because it does seem like a movie that has a huge audience and a lot of people know about and rave about. But we're here for your thoughts on it. What did you think of it, Blaze?
So I have to say the original reason I picked this was because I forget what movie we were talking about, and I'm like, you know, we got to change this up, just do something different, something we hadn't done before. I wanted to pick like a movie that I hadn't seen that was like kind of off the beaten path of stuff that we usually check out here on Never Have Ever. We haven't really done like an art film, so this is definitely more along the lines of like an art movie. Somewhat up for interpretation, somewhat not, to be honest, but yeah, it's more just the idea was I wanted to see, I think this is Sight and Sound magazine's like #1 movie, and like I know on Letterboxd when I looked through the top movies of all time, this was like one of those that I hadn't, like the highest rated that I hadn't seen, so like, oh, I'll start there and work my way down the list. So decided the best place to check it out here instead of on my own time was doing it for this show. Come and See, we watched it. I have to say, yeah, this is definitely one of those kind of, I don't know, I hear a lot of people say it's like somewhat like a horror movie, and I think one of the reasons I picked it was because I had always heard it was like a horror movie, and we just did, what was it on Fresh Releases, we just did I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I was like, all right, let's just take this up to 11, you know, like everyone said I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a horror movie, let's really go and watch the horror movie art film, you know. So checked it out. I don't see it as much as like a horror movie, but there are a lot of elements in the sound mixing, the production design, obviously the story, and cinematography, of course, that do kind of, you know, put you in this place that you don't really want to be, and you really have to be there to come and see, you know, like it's really the title of the film, like it's really taking you into the shoes of our main character Fleora, like you basically put in his shoes and also his psyche, and you're kind of forced to, you know, withstand and these essentially these horrific incidents in World War II.
Yeah. Interesting that this is also another one that's like kind of like characterized as like a horror film. Like I guess I'm Thinking of Ending Things was characterized as like the horrors of relationships and your own thoughts itself. This is definitely, and I really want to like, you know, press the fact that this is for sure like the horrors of war and shows like the absolute worst of it. But there's also some like fever dream-esque moments, like our lead protagonist, like he kind of goes deaf towards the, like I'd say like 45-minute mark of the movie, and just like for 30 minutes after that you just keep hearing ringing and everything sounds like it's from a distance, and I just like felt sick and nauseated hearing that, because you're really getting the perspective of him going deaf in those moments. And when he experiences like there's this mud scene, and then when he sees like his village, like some of the horrors that they experience, like there are some really creepy moments. There's like that skeleton and a burned victim, and this is actually one of the first movies, like there's a lot of movies like Saving Private Ryan or Platoon that show the horrors of war but aren't necessarily like anti-war movie, like they still feel like kind of inspirational at times. But this movie I think is the only war movie I've ever seen, that I've ever seen that felt like completely anti-war. I love that it's not glorifying war by any means. Like I hate seeing, like I'm not into action style war movies like what was Michael Bay's like Pearl Harbor, and then there was like another movie recently directed by Roland Emmerich, I think, that came out a year ago. That came out on Independence Day. Yeah. I'm just not into those style movies just because like I don't really want to see action set pieces for a movie that's like supposed to be like kind of depressing in a dark period in our history. Yeah. And just seeing this also, it's just like this is like the most brutal way to see some of these war scenes depicted, and the fact that it came from like 1985, and I see why it's like streaming on the Criterion Collection, and also just wanted to like commend how amazing some of the shots are in this movie and his different use of filmmaking that I haven't seen. Like it's unlike any movie I've seen.
Yeah. I think one of the main things to look at here is I do hear a lot of people say it's an anti-war film, and I mean, obviously it is. I can't disagree with that statement. But I think also the other thing to really look at is like, it's not just, because this wasn't just any war. Like, this is like a war where there is a clear-cut villain that's literally genociding people. You know, like, there's just a clear-cut villain. There's really no way you could put yourself in the Nazi shoes and really be like, you know what, I just got caught up, you know, like, you know, like now with you know, hindsight, we see what happened, you know, so many years later. It's like they're literally the clear-cut villain. Like, I mean, maybe if they won the war, obviously they would write themselves out of that being the villain, you know, clearly. But it's so like evident at this point in time, like how bad they were. We have all this history, but you do see these films like, I don't know, Saving Private Ryan's probably the best example, but I'm sure there's other ones where you might see like, even I guess here's a good example, this film Downfall. It's like you see the last couple hours of Hitler's life before he went into the bunker and never returned. And the film is a good film. I don't mean to I'm not talking bad about it, but it definitely, you don't see like how vicious and atrocious the Nazis were, really. And I don't think like everyone needs to see that, but it's definitely, the further we get from that time, like you kind of like almost forget how horrible these events were. And you really can see that when you're watching this film, clearly just on the protagonist Fleur's face, like literally just his face, how scarred, like it almost reminds me of those photos where you see like Obama before presidency and you see Obama's gray hair after presidency and like how his face aged almost. You see that in the 2 hours that this film's running time is, with Fleur's face in the beginning of the film all the way to the end. This film was actually shot in chronological order, so I mean, I'm sure there's some makeup and whatnot, and, you know, towards the end, obviously, but our character is clearly, like, our main character clearly is traumatized from everything that he's been through within this film. But us as viewers also, I have to say, like, this film can probably be a traumatic experience. I don't feel like I was traumatized watching this film. I did enjoy it for like everything that it stood for and everything there was, but it's not for the faint of heart, like this film.
Yeah, definitely not. Like, it's up there. It's one of those movies, like, there's a lot of movies that I enjoy but never really feel the need to watch again. Like, this is definitely up there. Like, some of my favorite movies, like, I mean, I'll admit it, Cannibal Holocaust, I think, is one of my favorite horror films I've watched, but I've only seen it once and I never intend to watch it again, honestly. This isn't like that level extreme or anything, but this is very real, essentially. And so, like, but also watching it, though, I'm interested to see more video essays on it, just to see how influential it was on other movies. Because one movie that really stuck with me, that felt similar, is a new movie. It's an Ari Aster horror film that, I don't know, I might be looking too much into this, but while watching this, like, I felt like Midsommar was very inspired by this movie. Like, just like I felt like a lot of the shots, its sense of dread, just the long shots and weird angles that we're seeing, the camera playing almost a character where everyone's speaking to the camera at all times. Like, it's very point of view focus, and Hereditary didn't have that, but Midsommar did. And I thought that was like an interesting change for that movie, but also just like, it might just be the blonde pouty face main characters that we see in both movies. But yeah, I'm wondering if like Ari Aster might have been inspired by this movie, and I wouldn't be surprised, but I could be wrong and looking too much into it. But yeah,
I don't doubt it. I mean, now that you mention it, it definitely resembles a lot of this film. Like, throughout this film, you see our main character's face, like, there's so many times where he's just looking at, like, straight into your soul almost as you watch the movie. So it is, like, I definitely can see the correlation being drawn there. But yeah, I mean, this film, like it being so high on a lot of people's lists, there are a lot of people that have criticisms of this movie, which I thought was interesting. I kind of definitely lie more on the side of I actually really like, I don't know if enjoyed's the right word. I really respect this movie. Obviously,
yeah,
I don't think it's like bad by any means. I think a lot of people, like, so there are some people that do really dislike this movie, and dislike that everyone always brings this movie up every now and then. But I think that the cinematography and the sound design alone, like, are things to look at. You know, the sound design is definitely something that people pick apart in video essays all the time about, like, how there are many things in this film where, like, you are literally inside the main character's head purely through sound design or those POV shots that you mentioned earlier. And that is really interesting when you look at it, and how, you know, these aren't things that you see in, you know, movies, especially nowadays, like, really where they put you in the character's shoes beyond, like, maybe that point of view shot, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And just like this dread that we're both like speaking of just like really shows, reading through some of the fun facts of this movie. Like, well, I wouldn't call them fun, but live ammunition was used within this movie. And some of those scenes, like, I was just like, is that like fireworks or real gun work at times? Like, one of the ones was the scene where they steal the cow, and just like, I mean, it's beautiful, like, shots and cinematography done there, but it's horrifying too, just because of how sudden it is and how it comes out of nowhere. But some of these scenes also, like, live rounds are being shot like only 10 centimeters above their head apparently, and that's just horrific to think about.
Yeah, I know that the main actor of this film was, like, truly scarred by this experience. I think for the rest of his life, I think he had PTSD. So, I mean, obviously I don't condone any of that. I don't think that, you know, his, you know, mental health was good to be at risk here for, you know, receiving this film in the end, I guess. But I mean, it sucks. Obviously I wasn't there on set, so I can't do anything about it, you know? But right, yeah. I mean, I think the film does really stand the test of time as, like, a true anti-war film because of, like, how clear-cut, you know, and horrible the Nazis were. Seeing them, that final scene kind of in the, or not the final scene, but the scene before the final scene, where it's like the church, like the burning church, that scene is really kind of hits home, and like how absolutely chaotic, horrible, literally almost feels like hell, like, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and it, you know, obviously it's symbolic because it's in a church as well, but and then even the final scene, like, talking about the final scene, like when you see these Nazis, like, kind of stripped of their power and, like, held at gunpoint by the Russian military. Like, yeah. It is interesting to see how fast they are easily to do anything to survive, almost like rats, like just selling each other out. Like, it's just kind of a crazy scene, but it goes to show you then at the end, like, really,
they play as
like,
the victim too.
Yeah, they play the victim, and it's like,
literally after 10 minutes after seeing, like, some of the most horrific scenes in cinema history. Yeah, they're
trying to act like, oh, we weren't really to cause. Mm-hmm. Whew, man, yeah. So this one's a heavy one. It's not going to be your typical never have ever, but I have to say, this isn't going to be a film that I probably watch maybe ever again. I don't know. Not that it's, like, bad or anything. I just think it was, like, I only really need to watch it one time. Maybe if I wanted to, like, study it or look at it more, maybe in, like, 20 years. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie, though, that I recommend people to check out. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but if you're a really big cinema lover, or even if, like, I know the war film genre is something that's really popular. If you haven't seen this one, this is definitely one to really check out, just because it's definitely a whole different style movie versus any other war movie I've ever seen. There's quite nothing like this movie, and I really, like, applaud that part of this movie. Is it like the greatest movie ever, or is it my favorite? No, but it's a solid movie. I'm honestly going to give it 4 stars, and that's something I never do. But yeah, it's very great, and I'm never going to watch it again. I'm glad to talk about it with other people, though, and watch some video essays like I brought up too. Like, it's definitely a movie I'd love to keep talking about with people. So hopefully some of you guys leave some comments and have some good conversations with us.
Yeah, most definitely. And if you guys want to support the show, the easiest way to support the show is by checking out the film. Check out Come and See in the Amazon affiliate link in the description box below.
If you haven't, also smash that like button. That really helps us out. And subscribe and hit that notification bell to get all your latest updates on videos.
And if you haven't already, guys, we are new to Instagram. Go ahead down below, search Drive By Movies on Instagram and follow us there. That's going to be it for this week of Never Have I Ever. Tune in next week.